Take a look around you. Look for something that's been made by human beings. It might be a mobile phone, or maybe a car, or perhaps a building. Ask yourself how long it will last. Will it still be around 50 years from now? 200 years? What about 5,000 years? Hidden in a forest on the edge of Brussels, there are some Neolithic remains of a settlement built by human beings 5,000 years ago. First discovered in the late 19th century, over the years, archaeologists have identified the remains of a fortification approximately half a kilometer long by several hundred meters wide. It housed a farming community with a palisade of wooden stakes protecting the people and their cattle. Ceramic pots and flint instruments have been found in considerable number, and the site is considered one of the most important Neolithic sites in Europe. Most of the site is still underground, and the Brussels regional authorities intend to keep it that way, given that any excavations inevitably result in some damage, and given also that the site is crossed by a railway line and there is nearby housing. Although the site is identified and the public can access the area, the authorities are anxious not to publicize its existence too much to avoid clandestine treasure hunters from pillaging and destroying it. This admirable determination of the Brussels authorities to preserve historical heritage contrasts with two shocking architectural crimes that happened in 1950 and 1964. Later in this episode, we will hear about the lone crusader who fought to prevent them, how he failed, but then later managed to preserve what is today one of Brussels' most prized possessions. Also in today's letter, giving consumers the power to buy climate-friendly products, a passionate speech in the COR plenary against the latest episode of homophobia, and citizens begin shaping the future of the Union. I'm Sean O'Kernean, and this is Letter from Brussels, written for the members of the Liberal Mayors Network and any other interested listeners, and brought to you by the Renew Europe group in the European Committee of the Regions. How can we make things that last longer? Consumers don't need products to last 5,000 years, but surely we can all agree that the throwaway economy, where products are designed to fail quickly, is no longer acceptable. Imagine you had the possibility of knowing how long the product you were interested in would last, how much of it could be repaired, and how respectful of the environment and society its production method had been. Would that information influence your shopping decisions? This was one of the proposals put forward by Renew Europe's Alexia Bertrand of the Brussels Capital Regional Parliament in her report presented to the October plenary of the European Committee of the Regions. In her report, she argued that consumers in the EU play an essential role in our transition to a clean economy, and therefore they need to be informed and empowered to make choices that don't worsen climate change. And she added, "We must make it possible for consumers to be able to repair their products. We must help small businesses in the transition to a new economy with EU funding, and we must make sure that the rules apply equally to all throughout the European single market." Consumers are first and foremost citizens, and citizens have been surprising EU leaders, not for the first time, but this time in partnership with them. Since September, a large group of citizens, from 16 years of age to 85 years, and from all 27 member states of the EU, have been willingly taking time away from their jobs and families to meet together to discuss what future they want for the EU, for their union. They have been studying the challenges facing society and the decisions democratically elected representatives must make. The European Commissioner, who co-chairs the conference, Dubravka Šuica, reminded the COR plenary that never in the history of democracy has there been a forum for citizens of 27 countries to discuss together about their future on an equal footing with their elected representatives. And she explained that before the citizens began their work, she expected their biggest concern to be health, given the pandemic. Instead, their biggest concerns so far are the state of democracy and climate change. But as there are still several months of deliberations ahead, she encouraged more citizens to participate via the conference platform. Coming up in a few minutes, a powerful speech during a tense debate in the COR plenary, and the Lone Crusader who saved 4 World Heritage Sites. But first, some other brief news. Congratulations to the Walloon and Flemish Liberal parties who are celebrating 175 years since the foundation of the Belgian Liberal Party. Congratulations also to French MEP Stéphane Séjourné, who was elected leader of the Renew Europe group in the European Parliament, following the departure of Dacian Cioloș, elected leader of his party in Romania. And the COR published the 2nd annual regional and local barometer, which shows how the Union is functioning on the ground. And this edition focuses on the post-COVID recovery. Some things should really not last long, and in fact have lasted much too long. In a highly tense debate during the COR plenary, Councillor Kate Feeney of Dunleary Rathdown Council in Ireland took the floor and delivered a passionate speech, saying that her report should be superfluous in the 21st century, but that hate crime is still happening in the EU, and so it is very necessary. Her report focuses on bringing an end to the discrimination against people who identify as LGBTIQ. She quoted one of Ireland's political giants, John Hume, who once said, "Difference is the essence of humanity. Difference is an accident of birth, and it should therefore never be the source of hatred or conflict. The answer to difference is to respect it. Therein lies a most fundamental principle of peace, respect for diversity." She also drew attention to the plight of many LGBTIQ citizens who make up a high percentage of homeless people because of the mental health problems they suffer as a result of persecution and discrimination. Shocked by overtly homophobic amendments tabled to Feeney's report by members of the party of Hungary's Prime Minister Orban, members from most political groups took the floor to denounce them. Renew Europe President de Coster said that sexuality is not a matter of opinion, and that while it is important to ensure that decisions are taken at the closest possible level to the citizen, the fundamental values of the Union must apply equally everywhere. Sari Rautio of the Christian Democrat EPP group stressed that human rights apply to all human beings and are not a matter of opinion. And Christophe Rouillon, president of the Socialist PES group, reminded all that the promotion of hatred is a crime, and the amendment that conflated homosexuality with pedophilia should not be allowed. The guest MEP invited for this debate, Renew Europe's Pierre Carleskind, recalled that we have been building the European Union for 75 years in order to defeat hatred, and that what we are trying to do is to allow every European to live in peace as they are, and with whomever they may want to live. The homophobic amendments were resoundingly rejected, and in the final vote, the COR plenary delivered a decisive message to uphold the EU's values. 135 votes in favour of Councillor Feeney's report to 22 against. From the tiny island of San Giorgio Maggiore, in the Italian city of Venice, there is a magnificent view of the Doge's Palace and of St. Mark's Square, the center of power in southeastern Europe 8 centuries ago. It was on this tiny island that nearly 700 architects gathered in the last week of May in 1964. They had come to agree a set of international recommendations for the restoration and conservation of monuments and sites. In total, they approved 13 resolutions, the last of which was extremely short. It read like this: Profoundly touched by the threatened destruction of the Maison du Peuple in Brussels, we appeal most urgently to the Belgian authorities to do everything in their power to save as much as possible of this major work by Viktor Orta. But what was this building, and who was Viktor Orta? Orta was born in the Flemish city of Ghent in 1861. In his early 20s, he began to emerge as a noteworthy architect, and by the age of 33, he was already a university professor and president of the Central Society of Belgian Architects. Considered one of the founders of what is called the Art Nouveau style, Orta transformed the look of many parts of Brussels and inspired architects in Europe and America. He designed the Brussels Centre for Fine Arts, the Brussels Central Railway Station, and many private homes, 4 of which were recently declared UNESCO World Heritage Sites. This is what UNESCO says about them. They are works of human creative genius, with meticulous attention to the smallest detail of the building, from the door handle or bell to the last piece of furniture. So, in May of 1964, when architects of the world gathered in Venice to discuss the conservation of heritage sites, they took the time to make their appeal. The Maison du Peuple, or House of the People, had been built by Orta in 1899, just west of the Sablon Square, at the request of the newly founded Belgian Workers' Party, the precursor to the Belgian Socialist Party. Over the years, however, and after the Second World War, the Belgian Socialists had fallen out of love with the building, to the point that their leaders wanted to demolish it in favor of what they described as modern and efficient offices. The former Socialist Prime Minister, Camille Huysmans, even went so far as to say that Orta wasn't worth bothering about. The Maison du Peuple was a pathetic structure. But for architects, it was a masterpiece, because of its combination of brick, steel, and glass, as well as the large meeting hall on the top floor. One man was particularly involved in trying to save it, and then, when demolition was certain, he took to preserving its memory by photographing the building as much as he could. This man was Jean Delay, an architect, but most importantly, a former student of Viktor Orta. He had already tried, and failed, to prevent the destruction of another of Orta's masterpieces, the Hôtel au Bec, a spectacular mansion at the entrance of La Cambre forest, whose façade was rescued at the last minute, just before the bulldozers moved in, literally crashing through the beautiful stained glass windows. Jean Delay realized that he would have to take preemptive action, and he took it upon himself to purchase some of Orta's remaining private houses. He became heavily indebted as a result. But now the debt is owed by all of us to him. Among the houses he managed to save, he secured the protection of Viktor Orta's own house and workshop, which is today the Orta Museum, one of Brussels' most successful museums. And thanks to the photographs he took, a 3D virtual reconstruction of the Maison du Peuple, piloted by the Orta Museum, has recently been put together and has even been shortlisted for the EU-funded Heritage Prize Elucidare. Some of Victor Horta's masterpieces barely lasted over half a century, but perhaps the digital world will allow future generations to know about and enjoy the heritage that previous generations were unable to appreciate and keep. And that makes Jean Delay's crusade to save Horta's memory a truly remarkable legacy to the world. If you are enjoying this podcast, you can subscribe on most major podcast platforms, as well as on YouTube. If you can, do leave a review if you have a moment. It does help. And if you think others might enjoy this podcast, please don't hesitate to tell them about it. Thank you.